Hey guys, we have rod stowage on the ceiling that is extremely easy to do and will stow any size rod you need. Here it goes. After browsing through a slew of ideas on the internet, I found that a P design or a slanted P design for this would work. I just took some scrap plywood out of the back of my yard, or you can get any real plywood. You get the lowest quality plywood you can because it's not cheap anymore. And then I made a slanted P, but if you make a straight P with a wider angle, for entry, like on top, the harder it is for you to get your rod in, but the harder it is for it to fall out. So it's like a give and take, and it's honestly a personal decision, but I just chose to do this little slant P. We'll be making 3 sets of these out of the last little piece of scrap plywood I have. So 3 of these will be the slant Ps, and 3 of these will just be hole saws. I made the initial circle with a hole saw, and I'll show you that here in a second how that was done, but we're just going to use this to trace as a template for the rest. So the rest pretty much mimic the entire process. Real quick tip, when you're using a hole saw right through the wood, don't go all the way through the wood. Get about 75-80% through to almost the end to where the back of the drill bit's poking out, and then go ahead and clear it out. And that's how you guarantee a nice clean cut all the way through without any splintering on the back end. If you go all the way through, it's going to splinter on the back end. I painted this wood for a different project, but this is scrap left over from that project, so it's pointless now. But if you wanted to paint the wood to give it a nice aesthetic feel to complement your ceiling, then I would do so then. You can also just get an extra piece of plywood and T-frame that directly on top of this to make, a leading angle to attach to your ceiling. But because I had aluminum angle just lying around, I'm using that. It's a little excessive. I wouldn't, unless you just really like working with aluminum like I do, I wouldn't waste it on scrap plywood to hang from a ceiling, but it will at least last. You could also probably use thin cold rolled steel angle or even drywall bead, and it would probably do the same thing if you're just liking the low profile design of a metal angle. And I just use self-tapping last screws for the rest of it. Cut out the ends, then drilled adjacent holes to where I'm actually going to install it on the roof itself. We'll be using drywall anchors and we'll be hanging it up there. Not a whole lot of marginal effort, because at this point in time, I just need something to stow my rods. I have a gambit of rods in different sizes. I have shorter 6.5 to 7 foot rods for bass. I have giant 8, 9, and 10 foot rods for really big fish, swim bait fishing, musky fishing. And then I have a slew of cat rods that are short but thick. So we kind of just use them in this separate area. I space these really far apart because these are all my really long rods. But I would not space it this far apart before. For a nice 6-7 foot rod, you only need to space them about 4 feet apart. All right, here it is, all done in the flesh. Made like an L notch. That way you could have slid it up there, and then it would have been really, really hard for these rod tips to ever fall out. Not that it's been a really big issue at all, but it is much more susceptible with kind of like the P shape, where if you'd made an L shape with a bracket coming out like this, and then the rod tip would have to actually go into the circle and out the L and come down, and that would pretty much lock it in completely. That would have been a much more intelligent design, but I just grabbed this on hand. You could use whatever you want. You can get cheap brackets from Lowe's. You could use drywall bead. You could use even a piece of wood you just want to fancy up together. It just is a scrap plywood I had laying around. It's holding all my rods, which is good because I'm in between boat projects. I'm trying to finish this thing up right now. And once I finish this thing, at least some of these will go back in there, and then I got to finish my other boat, in which case the rest of them will go back in there. But really nice place to store them, and then store your excess and store your overflow, and get them out of the way so they don't get caught in the garage door or stuck and bent or broken in a corner, jamming up. We've all been there. So, all right, guys, thanks. Let me know how you like the vid.